the AI and TAC integration. So without further ado, Dustin Hillis.
Hello, I'm Dustin Hillis, Chief Strategy Officer here at Stump. Also, I am in the world of AI, the president of a publicly traded AI company. I was at Nashville AI Week a few weeks ago as one of the keynote speakers. I was at the DC Tech Week a few weeks before that, also talking on the topic of AI. So excited to be moderating this. I'm genuinely excited to be talking with these guys and learning about the intersection of AI and everything that we do here with the government, the military, first responders. So thank you for allowing me to be the host and to get to hear from all these amazing folks. So the topic is, how does artificial intelligence and the team awareness kit have interoperability and autonomous systems for the future of situational awareness for military and first responders? So a little piece of how we set this up is I used AI to research everything about these guys. Then took the questions and ran it through Claude and said, who are the best people that are the experts at these questions? Claude researched everything about them and came back and said, yep, these are the top 3 people for each question. So the curation of today was through AI. So I thought I'd share that with you as also just the first easy practical thing you can do when you're even meeting with somebody. They can research the person you're talking to, give you their background, give you the right questions to ask them. And that's literally what I'm doing right now today. So to start with, we have Todd Maxwell. He is the Director of Regulated Business Development at Samsung Mobile Public Sector. As the Director of Business Development and Innovation at Samsung, Todd leads the team at Regulated B2B Mobile Business Development managers covering healthcare, finance, federal, and public sector marketing, having over 10 years of experience developing solutions, go-to-market strategies, channel enablement at a top 5 global brand. Last week, Todd was on the AI panel at the New York Stock Exchange. Next, you have Don Master Yates. He's a USAF Colonel, retired VP GM of Electra Aero. Master Yates is a retired U.S. Air Force officer, aviation leader with extensive operational and strategic experience across military aviation, advanced air mobility, and emerging defense technology. Today, he serves as Vice President and General Manager of Electra Aero, helping lead next-generation hybrid electric aircraft technologies for mission-critical operations. Nate France is the Program Manager for TAC Product Center. Nate serves as the Program Manager at the TAC Product Center, supporting the continued growth and deployment of the Team Awareness Kit ecosystem across military, federal, state, and first responder communities. Jarrett Fish Heavenston is the CEO and co-founder of Toughstone Technologies. Jarrett Heavenston is the CEO and focuses on situational awareness, TAC-enabled technologies, technical communications, drones, and mission support solutions for defense and public safety, and he's the reason we all are here today. Todd Krokowski, thank you. Sorry about that, Todd. Todd Krokowski, Director of... Todd works at the intersection of defense modernization, operational technology integration, federal strategy, and mission systems development. And then we have Stephen Karsten, the Director of Business Development at Qualcomm Government Technologies. Stephen focuses on advanced communications, edge computing, AI enablement processing, and next-generation connectivity solutions supporting defense and public safety missions. Isn't that cool that that's what AI has to say about all you guys? Does that sum it up, or anything else I should add? Good? Okay. All right, we're going to start off with question number 1. The flow of this is, we're going to ask a question, 2 or 3 of them we're going to answer. If you have additional thoughts or questions, feel free to chime in. This is an interactive session, and we want it to be engaging. and this is your time to really get to know the content that we're going to cover. So question number one, AI is transforming situational awareness. So how do you guys see AI transforming situational awareness for military and first responder teams in the next 5 years? Especially in environments like the mountain terrain here in Montana. Stephen, you mentioned 6G having AI built in. Can you expand upon that to get us started? And then we'd like to hear from some of the others like Todd and Don and Nate or anybody else that wants to chime in. Take it away.
Sure. Where's the power button?
Let's go with this.
All right. So yes, 6G is the first cellular network that is designed or architected for the Internet of Things first. So 4G and 5G were architected predominantly for uplink and downlink, where there was a human and a piece of glass in front of them interacting with a data center somewhere within the enterprise. So very uplink, downlink heavy. 6G is architected for continuous exchange of information across the Internet of Things. So I think where that goes for situational awareness here in Montana or another disconnected, intermittent, latent type network environments is TAC and other programs are going to become much more agentic AI centric, where the user is going to be interfacing with that agentic AI agent as opposed to just looking at the pane of glass and tracing the map dots. So things like route planning, patrol formations, sensor input is all going to be analyzed and synthesized, where AI is going to be providing an intelligent solution as opposed to just rote data for the operator to now have to conduct their own analysis in their brain. All of the sensors that are connected through the network are also going to be connected through the devices. They're going to be cross-talking, so that agentic AI agent is going to be synthesizing data not just available to its device, but available to the entire network.
Awesome.
So one of the things that I find very interesting about where I work is that we have fingers that touch everything, right? We work on 6G, we work on the networking side, we have all the networking side, we have semiconductor is creating AI chips. And what it really comes down to for us is how we take all that different technology, our partners like Booz and Stump and Qualcomm, and bring that all into an endpoint that can be utilized by users out in the field, right? We have a lot of devices, and we introduced AI on the endpoint that was standalone from the cloud 3 years ago. Some of the people in this audience asked me how to turn it off the day it was announced, because people didn't really understand what was going to be happening. But as we've seen this evolve, and we start seeing how we can use ATAC and use AI and features and prompts and use it on the endpoint when we're not touching the cloud, we have a great opportunity to try to simplify what's happening, dropping pins, asking questions, doing different things, drawing a polygon, doing all these different things that we could have, sending chat groups, sending distress, right, all on voice prompts. That becomes really powerful, and then we start thinking about it, you can do it only on the endpoint without the cloud, so you're standalone, which a lot of you are running ATAC in a standalone environment anyway, right, or backhauling over your tactical radios or anything. Being able to do a lot of these things is where we're trying to focus. And one of the things we've really tried to focus on is the agentic AI. And we just opened up our agentic AI API, so different applications can then integrate into that and allow this transformation on the endpoint. So
tell us what agentic AI is.
So agentic AI is basically allowing you to go across multiple platforms. So you're not stuck to having AI run on one application, right? So you could have, if you're thinking about law enforcement or something else, you could have a computer-aided dispatcher, record management type of thing come in, a call or messages come in, and then you can take and transform that into other applications. So it's not, it goes cross-platform. So before you'd have something that run on the device, but it didn't actually integrate into the application layer. Now you have stuff that goes from the device to the application layer to the sensors, and it pulls all that data in, and then you can utilize all that to run any of the type of prompts, any of the type of information you want to go. And then we have different people that are utilizing that in different ways. We're the endpoint, and we want to make sure that that part is working as well as we can, and that's why we're opening up all these features. But then we need our partners to pull in all the different capabilities too.
Oh, I'm the other Todd. I'm trying to look at I've been around, I've had the privilege of being around TAC since it started in 2010. And at that point, the end user community wasn't really hip to it, right? It was a new capability. You didn't really have a lot of folks that really paid attention to software development in that domain. And now we've progressed to a point where we went from digital natives really quick. The warfighter's a digital native. They grew up using Facebook, et cetera. And now we're entering the age of AI native. And so it's on us as the technologists to be able to determine not only what can AI do for situational awareness, but how can AI behave responsibly in these new networks, in these new modalities. I think that's a really important piece that we all have to consider. And then additionally, when you start thinking about how AI and all of the capability that gets distributed at the edge, like how are we thinking about planning for power? That's been a big topic that we've come up against over the last couple of years. It's like, this is really cool. The devices are phenomenal. Now that we're going to get more devices out in the field, how do we take care of the resupply issue, making sure they maintain a charge? Sounds really boring, but it's a very hard problem to fix.
I'm nervous because I have very little experience in TAC, but I think why the team brought me onto the board was to provide an alternative view of things. And so what wasn't in my bio, or if you haven't done your research on my background, post Air Force, I went to work at Boeing in Phantom Works and did advanced development programs on 6-jet systems, et cetera. And so what I was able to see was this new, dawn of all this situational awareness that's going to be available to operators at the edge. And what's been interesting to watch is, number one, the adaptation of AI tools to provide decision support to a fighter pilot, operating in a contested degraded place. The second part was the ability to adapt at speed. And so one of the things that I think that's interesting with technologies that companies are developing, whether it's a TAC-like system that is on the ground or a TAC-like system that may operate in the air, is this ability to adapt at speed in seconds. So saw a really cool demo of something, I won't say what it was, but a really cool demo of something that was able to be adapted in the air in real time with a update that basically provided an AI agent into something and be able to facilitate more situational awareness. And as we were doing kind of the analysis on the human factors of the integration between that, the part that was really the most compelling was how much information is too much information. And as all that is being sucked into the vortex and being translated through these algorithms and presented to you, the user, for a decision and then ultimately action, like how much of that becomes too much? And what we're seeing, I think, is in many cases it's too much, which will lead into some of the other questions I think that we have today.
Very good. So the next question is around federal policy and interoperability. What role should the federal policy play in ensuring technology like TAC, autonomous drones, and AI-enabled tools remain interoperable across agencies while still fostering private sector innovation? So for that, we have Todd, Nate, and Steven.
Which one wants it? Y'all both can do it. However y'all want to do
We'll
it.
just pair up.
Yeah.
We're going to pair, Todd are going to pair up together.
Todd's.
The Todds.
The Tots. So, that's a great question. It kind of leads back to my previous answer. TAC is pretty neat because it transcends government. And the reason it transcends government is because it is interoperable. Blue Force tracking existed before TAC. You had Falcon 2. That worked really great for a lot of folks. Then TAC came along. It was a shinier object, right? Worked on a smaller form factor. That's cool. But you really didn't see the adoption until you could find applicable use cases across state, local, federal, international. And that's because of interoperability. And so when we think about the future of this stuff, the interoperability has to be in the forefront. It has to be designed for. It needs to be transparent as well. And that's like a key tenet of anything AI related, right? You need to have governance. You need to have transparency on how the AI is being put together so that if you're in the fight or you're fighting with somebody that's using it, you kind of have an understanding of what's going on underneath the covers. I always joke with people that, pre-TAC, a lot of the end users that ended up using TAC didn't really like GIS tools. GIS is Geographic Information Systems. And you didn't realize now you're GIS experts, right, to a certain extent, because you use a map-based tool all the time. The same thing's going to happen here. Probably going to be something that sneaks up on you, but we just have to keep the interoperability piece at the forefront and make sure that we're very responsible with how we think about integrations, and we're not just stovepiped into one vendor or the other.
I find I don't know if anybody saw the announcement, but after 9/11, all the agencies and the carriers were supposed to create interoperability, right? And it's been all these years and they haven't done it. Finally, yesterday, I think I saw an announcement where they're all going to come together and create this interoperability between all three carriers. I happened to be on a panel several years ago with the carriers, and they said, well, how does Samsung handle interoperability? You're an endpoint. And I said, API. It doesn't matter what carrier you're on. It doesn't matter what network you're on. It doesn't matter what radio you're on. You have a common platform that anybody can use. As long as you federate, you can have multiple agencies. And that's how you do it. And it was a great answer at that time. But now with the change in how you see different networks evolving, some of the things we see here, some of the technologies get advanced. Before I was here, I was with Booz, funny enough. And I was at DOJ evaluating new technologies that were coming out. We were advising state and locals. And the one thing that always happens is tech advance comes out before policy. It takes multiple years for policy to catch up. And it's always going to be that way because it takes politicians a long time to understand what's happening and what they need to do and how they need to do it. What we need to make sure that we do as a community, as vendors, is keep advising them on the proper ways that we think it should be used, and you as observers and end users give feedback to them on how you're utilizing technology, so it doesn't become, the policy doesn't become a hindrance, but it becomes a helpful aspect into it. We had, anybody know what ALPR is? Automatic license plate readers. So they had these, and they came out, and where I happen to live in DC, Flock, a lot of them, they had no policy. So anybody could do a FOIA and get information on ALPR. And they're like, well, we don't need to have a policy on retention or wiping this data. And a reporter was able to take and plot data on every single person on the city council, the chief, the police, and the sheriff, and find out where they like to frequent work, after work, and everything else based on where their tags and their car showed up. So they could basically give an entire outlook on their life based on where they plotted across the city. So there is some things we need to figure out, but technology is always going to be outpacing policy.
Can I chime in real quick?
Yep.
We didn't really give that video from Senator Marsha Blackburn its proper introduction. The reason that I asked her to provide that video, I was in DC the day that Time Magazine nominated her and was in Time Magazine as the top 100 most influential people in all of AI. She brought out the magazine and showed it to me, and she was so proud of it because of her work with legislating AI. So when you build those kind of relationships, her chief of staff, head of AI, called me and said, hey, Senator Blackburn's about to propose a lot of legislation in this new bill that's going to get reviewed, and it's open to the public. Did you know that? And it's like, no, I'm not checking daily what's available for the public to review for a bill. She said, how would you like me to send that to you and you can provide feedback? And I was like, heck yeah, thank you. So then I ran it through Claude and said, hey, everything that I should know that's in this bill, what are the things that we should change that would actually not restrict the things that are helping people to help save lives? It came back with 5 really important things to change. Redlined it, submitted it, and she reviewed it before it went to be passed. Those type of relationships are worth so much for your businesses because you can get regulated and not even know the regulation's coming. So being in touch with people that are actually influencing this is super important. So I just wanted to piggyback on what you were saying. And that's the reason that she provided that video today was she's a big supporter of this. She's a big supporter of AI helping people while trying to maintain putting the right guardrails on.
The Todd has spoken. Who else wants to say?
So I think one place where policy does somewhat outpace technology is within 3GPP, because it is such a large body of international standards organizations, federal management, and technology providers that the standard gets written and then technology implements. It's not the only standard, but it's a pretty good one, and it transgresses from RF transmission through to network orchestration. I think it's less important what we pick as we pick something and then adhere to it. Top line, we need open platforms. We need standardized ecosystems. Got it. 3GPP provides a lot of that. A couple of examples. So within the 3GPP standard, coming under 6G, there is a UAV IFF, Identify Friend Foe, interface. So where we're using ATOS tags today, and then it has to be an additional thing that gets put onto every one of the drones. In the future, especially for drones operating in an urban environment, there is the potential for that to be coming off of their radio where every tower can see it, and then you can use ISAC, the sensing and communications function within 6G, so that everybody has a 3D map of where those drones are. There's also a Network Assist C2 capability where the quality of service for everybody's command and control link through their drone is dictated by a QoS mechanism that everybody adheres to.
Powerful. Good. We good on that one? Okay.
All right, the next question, small business innovation barriers. As small business innovators, what barriers, regulatory, financial, or technical, most limit your ability to rapidly deliver new capabilities to first responders and defense users? We have Fish as lead off, Todd, and Stephen, whoever wants to take that, but Fish is first.
Oh, we're just beginning to implement policies across Stump for AI usage. I attended an agentic AI conference about 3 months ago, and it was before I showed up. I was like, I didn't even think agentic was a real word. I didn't, and I get there and they're like, oh yeah, this is stuff that is kind of helping you think ahead of things. So for me, it was really the impetus for turning to my team and saying, all right, we need to figure out what our AI policy is going to be across the board, making sure that we're not helping our adversaries, assisting their AI systems getting smarter with all the things that we're trying to do, especially as it relates to national defense. And the challenge that we're kind of coming up against is, okay, what AI system is CMMC compliant, and how we're beginning to navigate that, because as a small business, CMMC is a huge burden on us, and we want to make sure that we're doing the right things right the first time. So, I'm as far as AI, getting really deep in the weeds of it, man, I am still just kind of dipping my toe in the tub. So I'll pass it over to Steve.
The three hurdles that I see for the small businesses are, one, because the ecosystem is so fragmented, small businesses do not have the capability or capacity to chase everything. They have to pick one thing. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. The second one is lack of access to AI models optimized for edge processors. I think if you don't have a large cadre of AI engineers, you end up maybe recreating the wheel and not as efficiently to keep up with the pace of commercial innovation. And then the third one that I think kills the preponderance of the smalls, especially in our space for DOW, is, to Fish's point, certification and authorization. Something that for a big is still painful, like CMMC, but for a small is just crushing, all the way through to the amount of money your VC has to float you to go through an NSA Type 1 or CSFC cert, where you are 18 months to 3 years between your product completion and the ability to sell it.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add to that. I think for small businesses, one thing to keep in mind, and I don't think this is going to change, soon. It probably will, and I'll probably be canceled as a result of it. But AI is great right now for greenfield opportunities. So you see a lot of folks pushing fast capabilities out there. AI is doing a fantastic job at creating all of that, right? So I'm more talking about how AI is being leveraged to help small businesses come to market, right? Think about how that impacts the legacy systems that are out there. Some of those aren't going away, and it's going to be frustrating. So how are you using AI to your advantage in that mindset of saying, I want to build capability, I want to help the warfighter, but I also understand I have to have interoperability, I have to work with these legacy systems. And AI might not solve all that for me. So you can carve out a little piece of the pie for yourself just by keeping that in mind. A lot of people are just sprinting. That's great. Everybody loves a sprint. But at some point, you got to peel it back and you got to look at what's actually useful. And I think that's still going to come down to a lot of the legacy systems that we have in play. And that's going to be the case kind of for a long time. Small business stuff is very fast moving. I'm obviously not a small business, but we were acquired by Booz Allen, so I kind of understand that world pretty well. I spent 20 years doing that. And I just kind of see the same types of trends popping up as the new technology emerges. Everybody's got to use it, but you really still have to consider the whole picture.
So obviously, we're not a small company either. But the one I've worked for several in the past is one of the, I see an advantage and disadvantage. As you mentioned, there's the ability to sprint. There's a lot of gaps that you might have as a startup that you don't have people. You might need some coding done that you can use one of the AIs to finish off some coding or make some suggestions. You can do go-to-market strategies based on historical records that help you in that area, write proposals, write up what you might need to present for investors. But there's also that part where you start losing what it is you're trying to do because you're getting so much input from other fields, from the AI, telling you how to run your business, so it's a balancing act that people are going to have to figure out. And I think even you took an AI policy, put it into an AI bot, and told it, spit out what you should change on it. I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
I didn't want to read the 40-page, very small print.
Right. So but we become reliant on what the AI tells us we should think and do, and that's the only part that I get a little bit hesitant on, because I think everybody saw a lot of the images, the fake images, through the conflict we're having. I think I can call it conflict, not a war. The conflict that we're having, and they're putting into AI to determine if it was fake. AI create the images. You're putting into AI to determine if it's fake. I was like, that seems a little bit weird at times, right? So we're in uncharted territory. I think it has great potentials to help small businesses get through a lot of the mundane things from, like you said, 40-page document. How can I
read this for me?
Yeah, read this and give me the highlights. But every once in a while, we might need to counteract that with some of our own input and development. We don't want to take the great things that we all do, because we all have great ideas to start off in these startups and with these small agencies. So we don't want to lose that innovation spirit.
I think that.
Yes, we have an audience question.
So in the context of small business and the tech ecosystem, I'm curious about how you think that AI and agentic AI may help us to get integrated into tech easier, faster, better, and like start from scratch. I got advice. I want to make it techified. You know, what's the path to that? What's the easiest way to get AI in there? And doing that's my
Yeah. What's the name of your company?
Symphony.
Symphony?
Yes.
So what I would do is pull up Claude and talk into it and say, I have a company, Symphony, that check us out, here's what we do, and describe what you do.
Ceasefire. Let Todd answer that.
Okay, I thought he was asking me a question.
Yeah, no, Claude's great. I love Claude too. I'm kind of done with Claude at some level. I ask it like how to pick out outfits and stuff like that, which is probably not an appropriate use for Claude. Help me find these pants. I like these pants. For folks looking to leverage AI to get into tech, it's a great time, right? Because you have a plug-in architecture that's very robust, very supported within the ecosystem, And because of the way it's structured, it's built and allows you to get the plugin that you need to build up and running quickly. The caveat is there's still nuances inside of the TAC ecosystem where AI isn't going to solve that for you. Personally, I've used AI quite a bit to build plugins to just because I get bored or whatever. And I think it works reasonably well within the TAC ecosystem. The typical caveats always apply when you leverage those systems. They're gonna pick what they feel are the best dependencies for you. They're gonna pick some software decisions, and if you're not careful, you end up with a lot of undesirable outcomes, right? You could have a third-party library that's just no good. You could have a third-party library that's out of date, which is often the case with those systems. So the typical things apply, but being able to leverage those platforms alongside this very robust ecosystem, I think is gonna give you the technical expertise. You just have to do the homework on the user.
Yeah, so can I follow up a little with that? Because I think where the rubber meets the road is the when you have the lack of the knowledge of the tool that you're using to get to the endpoint you want, the input to the AI process, you have insufficient imagination in order to constrain the problem or to point it in the right direction. And how you get that chicken and egg problem solved between your lack of understanding how to push the tool in the right direction to get it to the answer that you want, but you don't know how to do it, is that's where I get stuck.
Yeah. I mean, so in
That's
that,
what I was going down.
I
was going to say that.
In that sense, that's where TAC being in the public domain is a great thing, right? If you have the ability to at least narrow down the type of thing you want to do. Personally, when I do plugins, I leverage the public domain as a MCP server, right? So I can ask it questions about the code base. I can help get some clarity. That not only helps with architecture, but to your point, that kind of helps vector in okay, well, I have these 3 paths I can choose. And then I know, based on what I want to do and how I'm working with a human, where to guide the AI from that standpoint. But it can do a very good job.
Open qual.
Yeah, I mean, we typically will use multiple agents, right, to fact check and come up with the best of breed, if you will. Does that help?
Yeah, sure.
I know the questions aren't supposed to be for me, but an AI architect, back-ending, you're proofreading everything. We have about 40 AI architects, and nothing that we put out doesn't go through them first for QA. You always have to check your work, to your point. It'll make mistakes.
So who are the TAC AI architects?
Who are the TAC AI architects?
So I think that's something that's current, and Nate's not here. I think that's something that the TAC Product Center is currently working through to help figure that part out.
Great question. Thank you for hopping in there. What was that?
There's a TAC LLM coming out for developers.
An update's coming soon.
Yeah,
LLMs.
Large language model.
LLMs. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I'm new here. Just joking. Mountain environment technical. Large language model update coming. What are the biggest technical challenges in making TAC-based systems reliable in low connectivity, high altitudes, and mountain environments, much like where we are here today? So let's go with Don, Nate, and Steven.
Yeah, I may not bring the right expertise, so I'm going to defer, and I'll go at the end based on that.
Okay, let's do it.
You want to go?
That was
You want
me.
to take a crack? Take a crack.
Okay, the one guy that doesn't do anything in
help you with
mobility.
it. I'll help you with it. Todd's
and
okay.
networking. It's okay. It's okay. I can take this. So, really, what we're trying to do, we're the endpoint, right? So we are trying to work with all the different people here to enable data backhauls, whether it is over satellite, whether it's over mesh networks, whether it's over Sidelink, whether it's over LTE, whether it's over Wi-Fi, whatever it is, right? The whole goal is to have that backhaul data and then be able to provide processing on the endpoint, and then hopefully with the updates they have coming and the release of our agentic AI API, people can program and utilize all that data to make predictive decisions or suggestions to them on the fly. So the real thing that we start looking at is how do you tie all those different pieces in? What components do we need with our endpoints to enable all this over those backhauls, over those mission sets? Do we need to work with some of the additional partners like Qualcomm, some of the other Trellisware, Persistence, Silvus, incorporate that natively into our devices to allow this to be easier to do? So you can have these backhauls and you have this communication that's always available, right? It'd be great if we tied this all in, but there's one thing we have to keep in mind too. We have FCC that says we can't have so much radiation coming out of our device, right? That's why you traditionally have a separate device, these radios and these antennas doing this. Some of the work we're doing with some of the partners here, we're trying to solve all that. So that's my high level sort of
That's good.
how we handle it, and I'll pass it off.
Yeah, I think when you think about what TAC does, right, it provides situational awareness. What is situational awareness? It's spatial temporal data. And what that means is it's dependent on latency, right? So if you take a lot of time to process a result and you make a really efficient network call, that may not mean much if you're 15 minutes late to the party. Like the party's already left, you're too late. So really thinking through, again, what data makes sense in that environment is kind of key here. And then on top of that, how much data am I producing? Am I saturating the network because it produces a cool visual? Or am I just introducing too much latency into the system? And that's something that I think has kept TAC at the forefront along with its interoperability, is that it kind of recognizes that by design, right? So if you're behind the curve by 5 minutes, you're going to get a stale marker. Or the marker isn't going to appear because it's no longer relevant.
Okay, so I'm going to try to keep my answer around layer one. And talking about layer one challenges out here, where do I start? Okay, so the first one that we're all experiencing right now, given the lack of available enterprise transports, we are all sharing the same half gig uplink back to all of the cloud repositories everywhere. Now imagine if this was a real disaster or contingency response and there weren't 30 of those terminals, but 300, and now we're all sharing the same half gig uplink. It's not going to work. So resiliency, robustness, and redundancy of transports spread across the spectrum is absolutely where we need to get to. Spectrum is such a huge challenge as well, not so much here in Montana, but if this was a disaster relief operation outside of Los Angeles, we'd have a very different problem. So we need a lot of transports. We don't need a lot of radios for everybody to carry, so those all need to be software-defined transports. To the point that the Todds were making as well, we need the ability for low latency inter-device communications, so that means we need to be doing the vast preponderance of our compute at the edge. So we need low power, high compute capability processors like what's built into our phones right now, but have the ability to repurpose the majority of those NPUs, CPUs, and GPUs to be able to run mission relevant applications.
Nothing to add.
We're good. Just keep rolling. Next question is on the topic, balancing AI and human judgment. How do we balance AI-powered automation with the need for humans to maintain judgment, oversight, and trust in high-risk tactical or search and rescue operations? So I had Don, Todd, and Fish. All right, give me the mic.
I am ready. Okay. As any new technology comes into play, there is a introduction, there is a trust building phase, there is an adaptation, and then there is what I call dependence. And so dependence is, depending on how you hear that word, could be a good word, could be a bad word. And what I see a lot in the tools that we bring, to the points that were made in the first comment about innovation that happens at speed, and everything's happening really fast, and AI is one of those, is that we're going through what I call a trust building phase specifically. But what's going to happen that really concerns me, as I can see, and we're starting to see it now a little bit in some of our experimentation, is when we get beyond the trust phase into adaptation and then dependence. Dependence breeds complacency because the tool is happening so fast. There's so much information coming in, and instead of making the hard decision, you defer because you're worried about the next decision that's coming. And that is really, 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 really scary. So that's happening downrange with certain tools. I won't get into here. And it's also kind of highlighting this, this just because we can doesn't mean we should kind of mindset. So I would just ask all of these people that are kind of at the forefront as we're developing these tools for the warfighter, make sure we're doing it for the right reasons. I will just say the last 25 years of my career have been awesome. Hanging with this group, a conventional guy in the special operations world working at the edge. A lot of the people here are shielded from kind of the greater organizational challenges that are out there from services kind of battling, combatant commands kind of battling, et cetera. And it's kind of neat to see problem solvers get after solving problems.
That's good.
Fish?
Yeah, next.
So I think this is something that I can finally sink my fangs into when it comes to the panel. Show of hands out there, who remembers the acronym SILS? Right? There's a few people. Stop, look, listen, smell. So back when I used to spend the majority of my week with a rucksack on my back, walking around South Rainier, patrolling, that was how we sensed our environment, right? Listen to what's going on around you, smell, look, and most importantly, pause, right? Stop, look, listen, smell. And so now, my concern, even though, yes, I run a tech company, and I'm trying to get tech into the hands of all the good guys, is that we run the risk of trying to feed information to people on a platter that doesn't match what is in their environment. And there is a high probability in some cases where people are going to make decisions based upon what they see on the phone and not what's in front of their face.
Yeah, here. That's good, Fish.
I agree with you. I think you have to balance the information that you're about to get with your own decision making. Otherwise, you're turning it into a game, right? It's just like playing a video game. Oh, this is my threat. Take care of that threat. So there's going to be a fine balancing, and we don't want to take the human nature out of this, because all the people that work in law enforcement and military make great military decisions, law enforcement decisions. We trust you. You have the experience. You have all the things that have built that experience over time. But what if we could present you information that in a heads-up display where you're out there, this person, based on the object recognition, there's a threat, might be carrying this, might be doing this. There's some sensor activity that I have that's picking up ammunition or gunpowder or IUD materials, right? And presenting that to me so I could make an accurate decisions at a heads-up display, right? We're talking like AR and such, but a lot of companies are working on that, IDAS and everything. But having all that information presented to me so I can make real-time decisions, that part's powerful. Now, what I do with it, that ultimately is going to be on me as the human to do. And I think as long as we always remember that the human is the person that's going to have to take the action. So we present them information, and the worst thing we can do is afterwards criticize them that they were given information and didn't act the way the AI told them to do, right? That's the part that I have been fearful.
That's a good point.
I just add real quick, I do a lot of talking, I don't usually talk this much, but fresh air, they gave me the 24 ounce.
Give you some extra coffee.
Over the 20 this morning, so we're gonna bear with the talking mic at this point. But I would only add one thing to it, and I think AI can be a tremendous tool for training. I think that's kind of where it needs to start, right? Where you can use AI to think like the enemy and help pick apart your own thought process. Instead of just getting a wall of text or using Claude to help you do close air support. I don't think that's really what you want to do, but I think you can leverage these systems to help you think through the what ifs going into a scenario. We all know TAC is a dynamic tool. TAC was built that way because things happen, right? And so these tools can help prepare you for that. And that's a gap I see in the current landscape today, is that we don't have that environment available to us.
You have a question right there.
Yes, so as we're talking about like the human in the loop and feeding information to inform decisions, right? Anthropic has published research that shows that these models can be poisoned very easily and trained to hide from you, right?
Yep.
So like as we're making these decisions, with TAC specifically being a largely open source, development collaboration, how do we protect these models from passing all of our training safety evals, and then when it gets a trigger during some sort of event, right, it feeds that operator the wrong information.
Great.
Now that operator.
Could you repeat?
That decision making.
Can you repeat
Yeah, so
that?
the question, if I summarize it correctly, is around how do we know we can trust these models at scale if we're providing sensitive input into them so that they don't steer us in the wrong direction because they've been poisoned. I think it's a very valid statement, and I would agree with you that that's why I'm pretty passionate about the governance piece. I wouldn't use Gemini, Claude, what's the other one, ChatGPT.
Yeah, chat, yeah.
I wouldn't use these systems to put
Grok.
that type of information in, right? Grok, right? I would be very careful about how that occurs, and obviously for all the OPSEC reasons that exist out there today. And I think that's just where it's on us. We have to be very vocal about the governance. You see that a lot in the mainstream, right? Where they're worried about AI taking everybody's job, but there's no one that's really standing up and sticking their neck out for governance. And that's exactly what's needed. And I think that's going to be proven in this industry and not on the commercial side. So I totally agree with you.
Can I add something to that? I was just going to say, go ahead.
I'll give Don the mic. Give him the mic.
I was just going to say, back to the whole point about,
Hand it to him.
no, back to the whole point. I mean, great point, but just back to the point about small business obstacles. More governance means more walls, more difficulty. So as it becomes more secret, as it becomes more difficult to protect what you're trying to do, the walls come up, the policy comes up, prevents you from innovating.
I find it a great question, because if we've paid attention, they've released how many chatbots, and within a matter of 24 hours, they took the worst of us and put it out there, and I think Grok had an issue with it. There was another, Twitter had an issue with it. Like they take the worst of our human nature and put it out there, right? So how do we stop these AI tools when we know people are going to start messing with it and putting out these bad positions, right? That's really what I'm at. That's what I start thinking about. It's not intentionally doing it. It's us manipulating this tool, the system. So it's going to come back to, that's why I put the emphasis, yes, policy, responsible policy. It doesn't stop growth, but it's going to come back. And we can look at an image, most of us, and say, hey, that's bullshit, right? We can get a prompt to us to say that person's, we need to take them out, and it's like a little kid. We know that's not right, right? So we're going to have to balance that human nature with the information. That's why I say it's a tool, right?
Right.
AI is a tool to help you do your job. You are the one that is going to decide how you're going to use that tool, whether it's relevant or not. So I think that's sort of how you balance it, but there is going to be some of the, as human nature, we do really bad things sometimes, right? We just do. I'm like, in 24 hours, we had this thing cursing and saying the worst things that you could possibly say to the human beings. I'm like, but somebody fed it all that data, right? So it's funny. So that at that point, I think we just need to balance it with the human nature.
The training matters, and as pioneers of technology companies, the way you're training your AI models, who knows how that could take root into the future. So I think of it like a 14-year-old girl. I have a 14-year-old girl right now, and she kind of listens to me. I can tell her to do the dishes, and she'll do the dishes, maybe begrudgingly. And I think AI is in that formative stage right now where the people training it, the people programming it, it's listening. And I don't know what the future holds, but the experts say 5 years from now, it could take that training and start making conclusions down the road. So for all of us that are programming and training, to Todd's point, the training matters. So teaching it to value life, teaching it to value the core values that all of us in here believe in really matters. And that is a perfect tee up to the next question. The U.S. competitive priorities. With the emerging global competitors investing heavily in autonomous and AI-driven systems, how should the U.S. prioritize investment to remain technologically ahead while ensuring ethical use? I'll just let anybody take this one that wants to go first.
So as the only non-US based company, I guess I can start this
Oh,
off.
that's a perfect way to, go.
So we have a very, we're a global company that has factories all over the world. But what we do is we prioritize on where we're focused. In the US, we have semiconductor factories here. We have our US based. We have different supply chains that we utilize for the US to ensure no sea burns, right? We set up certain things that are relevant to the US, TA compliant devices, right? All these things to do that. And I think the policy now is to try to bring more and more companies here. You know, they have the CHIPS Act that brought a lot of people to bring those chips here, so we didn't have to rely on foreign companies. We have multiple foundries here. We have a lot overseas. And with what you see happening with Taiwan and where that is, it creates a great risk because a lot of our chipsets are coming from Taiwan, right? If something happens out there, we need to have these chipsets here, and that's why we've made investments here, and a lot of other TSM and some other companies have made those investments here, so we have those capabilities to do this, Qualcomm, others. So it becomes very interesting for us because just thinking about the globalization, when we start bringing things back here too, the cost goes up. Labor costs are more, taxes are more, everything's more. So everything becomes a little bit more expensive to do this. So it's a balancing act, these large and small companies, as you build up things and you start utilizing capabilities here, there's a cost factor associated to that. There's a reason why we sort of globalize and try to use multiple workforce, multiple change where rare earth metals and everything are, and having certain things built in those countries, right? It was to drive down costs, create efficiencies, create supply chains. But we saw with what was happening in the conflict, how those supply chains, like who knew helium was used to make all these chips? Anybody realize that? I didn't realize that. And I work for a company that has it. I didn't realize that. I thought they were concerned about party balloons. Nope.
Let's put it to Steve for the next one. You teed him up perfect.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said, Todd. I think a second one on the supply chain pieces is I think a lot of us are feeling the memory crunch right now. So as we bring more of these devices online and they're all going to require the same universal flash storage, we're going to need to diversify our supply chain there. The other place for, I think, significant and prolonged investment would be in 5G non-terrestrial networks. So right now we have limited options in proliferated LEO. There are many more coming, but they can come online quicker. And I think that is going to be revolutionary for these types of environments here where each individual user has multiple options in vastly different portions of the spectrum in order to get connectivity. And then they can pick and choose depending on their data rate requirements versus their ability to get through bad weather, through trees, or other obstacles.
Could you give us like the next 5 years in Qualcomm's roadmap that you can share to hedge against this?
You got to be careful here.
Get to the good stuff
yes,
that you can share.
So right now we have chipsets that have narrowband IoT, NTN, available. Here in the next, I'll say, year or so, we'll have modems available with the NTN NR capability, and then those will be available for the device manufacturers.
Are you future-proofing, like a conflict, like with, is that in the roadmap?
Yeah, always.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
I think it's no surprise to this crowd that our adversaries do not hold themselves to the same standards that we do when it comes to autonomy, when it comes to AI-driven decision-making, especially when it comes to lethal attack. I was back in 2010, I was part of the first fielding of one-way attack systems. We didn't even call it that back then. So I've had a unique perspective as this is for the past 16 years as it's grown, and now I have a ringside seat to a lot of the conversations about the ethics involved with AI and one-way attack and kinetic delivery. I think that we are, as a nation right now, we're probably a little bit behind what our adversaries are doing. But I do believe that we are working through in a very good way how we are employing these things, how we are setting the parameters for them to be able to accomplish their mission in a way that frees us up from having to be one operator, one plane, to be able to field them at max capacity while still maintaining the all of the Western values that allow us to still maintain the moral high ground.
That's good.
I'll add something really quick if I can, very quickly, very quickly. The resurgence of the industrial base, I think, is a great example of the work that's been done. There's a lot of work more that can be done, that should be done, but as was pointed out with Leo, if you look at how commercial space has been industrialized, I see a similar pattern there.
Excellent. Next question, legacy systems integration. Legacy systems are often difficult to integrate with modern TAC plugins and AI tools. What strategies, technical or organizational, could help bridge the gap? Stephen, you're the first one that I said we should ask.
Okay. Okay, so I'm probably going to give a generic answer on this one, and then Todd will bail me out. So when I look at legacy system integration, I generally have 3 tools in my toolkit. The first one is going to be middleware and robust APIs. That requires development time. Second one is gateways at specific hierarchical points in my network. Tracks is a perfect example. If I can get to tracks, I can get to TAC. The third one, which I think is coming online more prolifically, is the back end of everybody's cloud server is an SQL database. So if I can push data to the cloud and I can meet in the cloud, it's a lot easier for me to start pushing specific bits of data across EC2 instances than it is maybe to find the right cable and plug 2 servers in next to each other.
You didn't need bailing out, you did great. Basically, that's it, right? The legacy systems, when you're using AI, AI can be a powerful tool to help with the planning piece. You have to still understand what the system does. You need to understand what the system connects to, and then you can start your journey using the planning functions of some of these agentic platforms to be able to get you further down the road. We already kind of talked about how the agentic space is helping the TAC plugin developer community today, and I think that'll continue. And like I said earlier, these legacy systems aren't going away, and so being able to figure out what's the minimum viable candidate to show the integration will get you to a level where you'll then be able to make a better decision and a more informed approach.
So I think when you start looking at a lot of the legacy system, there's some sort of data collection, whether it's analog or digital, right? And I think to his point is that data is collected someplace, and whether it's in the cloud service and you can write an API there. We have so many people writing amazing APIs to TAC that handle a lot of legacy systems. So we sort of already have a model right there that I've seen. I have people coming up to me yesterday talking about all this AI things that they're doing that we can't talk about. A lot of the people in yellow can probably do a lot better stage up here talking about some of the cool things that they're trying to do and trying to keep it sectioned to their specific mission, which is really cool. But when you start thinking about some of these legacy data, legacy systems that will have basic data. Once you start putting it into the cloud, you can start developing these APIs. You can start at that point utilizing the AI tool to process that data and send it down to your device. And with the agentic, you're able to go across multiple platforms and utilize that data set that you were able to put someplace in the cloud.
Yes, question.
Yeah, apologies to anyone in the crowd who's already heard me talk about this because I've been promoting this vision to anyone who will listen, but I've started thinking about TAP plugins as, for this conversation, legacy systems. And how do we use AI running on ATAC, for example, to actually bridge all, there's something like 250 plugins now out there in the TAC ecosystem. Right now, they're all their own individual silos, and I need to go and open one and know how to use it to interface with it, and then open another. What I can see in the future is using AI to weave all of those plugins. If you look at each of those as a legacy system, we need some kind of adapter so that each of those plugins becomes self-describing, right? So that the ground guidance plugin tells me it does that, the Seaward plugin tells me the model of plume, the weather plugin tells me about wind data, and then you can imagine putting those three together through something like AI on ATAC. Just curious as your thoughts on TAC plugins as legacy systems.
Yeah, so the question is, or the statement rather was, plugins are almost considered to be a legacy application at this point. The plugin architecture is circa 2012. I was there, man. It was a wild time to be alive. And we've progressed to a point where if you listen to me talk in like 2018, I told you to stop developing plugins because there's just too many to keep up with. Do I really mean that? Probably not, right? I know everybody has to integrate their capability, and the plugin ecosystem is a great way to do that, but it's all about context moving forward. You don't want Skittles on the map. That's not helpful, right? And adding all those plugins and then like a deluge of data does very little for you. But if you're leveraging AI, to Nate's point, in a way where you have contextual awareness about what's going on in that device, as well as situational awareness that you benefit from as a human, that's really the future, in my opinion. So spot on.
So I believe, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that that's the whole point. If we can tie in the agentic AI pieces to these plugins, then we can take the best of all that and bring it all together in a common operating platform. Now, what we'll have to do is wait for the next language models that are coming into the TAC.gov, and then look at how those incorporate into the end devices you're going to have out in the field, right? So now you would have all this legacy data, you have all these plugins, and you could potentially go across and pull data and then have it feedback what might be specific to your mission, right? It's almost like taking a view and saying, I need this type of view, and it's going to pull all the plugins that are capable and present that to you in a common view.
Yeah,
Quick point on that. I think where we're able to be in the next couple of years with the amount of edge processing that's available on low swap platforms, we could get to the point where each one of these plugins or AI capabilities is running its own inferences, and then on top of that, you have a consensus builder and quorum decisions where each piece is looking through its relevant data, creating a decision, and then a model running on top that is providing the operator the quorum decision and then also any outliers.
That's good. Next question. End user feedback loops. How do you incorporate end user feedback, whether from firefighters, SAR teams, or special operations units, into rapid production deployment cycles? Fish, you're first up on that one. You can punt if you want to.
I'm gonna punt. Anybody?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. It comes up a lot in the TAC community because it does transcend those levels of government, and being able to listen and understand the problem from a horizontal perspective is kind of key to really being able to produce those vertical implementations. So what works for a wildland firefighter is often the same thing that works for a JTAC because they're both operating in the same environments. It's just a different enemy. One's a natural element, and the other one's probably human, hopefully. So that's what TAC is all about. That's how it got built, was listening to the end user and really considering that. You could put a really cool UI in front of somebody, but it doesn't work with gloves. Okay, well then it's useless. You just wiped out 95% of the population. Firefighters wear gloves, special operators wear gloves, policemen wear gloves, those types of things. So it's understanding the user and really figuring out like what their problem is relative to that horizontal landscape of situational awareness, mission planning, et cetera.
All right. So this is my closing question, and then we're going to open it up for you guys. So if you could each think of one immediate change, policy, funding, training, or technology to accelerate the safe adoption of AI and TAC-enabled capabilities for the military and first responders, what would that be? We're going to have each person go, and then we're going to open it up for questions to you guys.
I think the easiest answer, and the one we've all sort of hit on and talked about, is the training aspect of AI, right? How do we train our models? How do we train our prompts to do the things we want to do to develop the coding or the processes for our small business? And even as a large company like ours, we have all these different prompt trainings on different versions of AI that we have access to. And we even have on our work devices have AI locked down on our work profile until we can have everybody properly trained and deploy it properly. So learning all the aspects of it is going to be the biggest thing I see.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that one, and I'll add my pitch about governance to it as well, right? Like we really have to understand what these systems are capable of. Doesn't mean we need to understand every bit and byte, but it's on us. Nobody's coming to save us in this regard. They're going to keep pushing capability very fast because it's imperative for them to generate a profit, right? That's the industrial side of it. It's on us to figure out what we want to pick and choose, and it's on us to be vocal about the governance.
I'm predominantly a transport guy, so I'm going to go back there. I think the commercial community is going to do a lot of the heavy lift as far as the modeling, and we'll be able to benchmark and reuse that. I think the ability for our end nodes to be able to cross-communicate across multiple redundant software-defined transports that are frequency diverse to give us spectrum agility is a place where federal funding in our community is going to have to step forward so that all of our nodes are cross-communicating and we're getting access to everybody's sensors, not just the ones on our device.
I'll go beyond device and say from a governance standpoint, I would say transparency. So many of the people that are here, if you went back and talked to many of the innovations that you guys have developed that have propagated into the conventional side, it took 10, 15, 20 years for that to get adopted. I would say try to open up your aperture, try to spread the technology, spread the lessons learned. Transparency in lessons learned events like this will go a long way for tomorrow.
If I was to keep my comments focused on like Department of War side of things, what folks are running around with on their chest right now is a weapon system. But it's not considered a weapon system, right? Everybody goes to the range, they shoot, they know their rifle inside and out. They get trained on it, they get qualified on it, same with a pistol or their radio. But there's no formal. The Department of War has yet to adopt some type of formal training across the board for TAC. Right? There's no, like, it's just a pickup game. It's when we were in Ranger Regiment, it would be called hip pocket training. That's the only way that people across the military, it's not just the Army, but I mean, it's across the mill. There's no formal certification there for folks to use to learn that.
Well, there is one.
There is one. We have it.
What's it called?
Selfless Pub, Tough Stump University. You can check it out on our website. Yeah, but that's the point, right? You know, is that the military right now is expecting everybody just to be like, oh, well, you know, we're dumping hundreds of millions of dollars into this ecosystem. Figure it out, and that's the wrong answer.
All right, the floor is yours. What questions?
The floor is yours. What questions do you guys have for this panel? We'll go here and then here next. Do you mind using the mic?
Yeah, no problem.
We'll have the questions come to right here.
Yeah, so my name is David Michelle from Syntony. So I'm going to propose something kind of out there. I think with regard to the human factor, that we need to consider really fundamental things about perception and cognition, and that for us as people to deal with the challenges of the technology, especially the AI stuff that's going along, that we need to develop new capabilities in our consciousness, like literally. And one of them is a concept called the observer, which is developing the ability to see yourself acting in the world and what the potential of those actions becomes. And you can observe what you're doing, interacting with people, interacting with devices, and provide a judgment layer to deal with the challenges of the overload of information, getting your gut involved, all those things. If we build an observer, it could be a next level that we can operate at that's ultimately safer.
So what, is there a question?
That sounded like.
Do you think that's nuts?
I love it.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay, here we go.
No, I think that's where it's got to head. Right? You got to have the contextual piece to it. You got to have the physiological piece to it as well. There's the whole element of biology that is not talked about at all, but I think is going to play a pretty important role moving forward.
I'm trying to be very sensitive on how I answer this. So there's a lot of, I agree fundamentally that there would be an observer. There's also some different technology that we're utilizing across multiple different platforms that start identifying physiological and mental breakdowns based on voice and other things, the movements and everything else. So as you build that observer level, having some of this sensor data that tells you how you're actually performing when you're doing some of these activities, I think is really interesting. And that's the part I'm sort of excited about, to see how it's like, hey, all of a sudden your speech changed when you were doing this. This is something that maybe it affected you on a different level when you were doing these activities. And so that part I find very interesting, and how it'll affect that observer level.
Yeah, here's a great story. So we did some analysis using what we call small manned aircraft that were flying with AI agents. And what we found was when you were at range and you had time to make the decision, you trusted the AI a lot more. You were relying on the inputs and you let the AI do it. As soon as you started to get, kind of close and things started to happen, things were happening inside of 20 seconds, you left all the trust and you went to your own, kind of devices. And so I would just tell you context is everything, but one of the things that was interesting in our study was we had these eye trackers, and as soon as things started getting kind of haywire, people came out of the AI and their eyes started like twitching left. And so that's when we knew that the trust level had basically gone away from the AI. So to your point about observers, to your point about physiological indicators, that was something that we saw do advanced work on some of the things that we're looking for tomorrow.
All right, next.
So I think a lot of times when we were talking about governance with AI, we're talking about how do we prevent an AI from doing something we don't want it to do, right? We want it to drop a bomb on someone shouldn't be dropped. What about governance for humans using AI to create technology? The other day, just as an experiment, I tried to recreate an existing tool that probably took 5 years to create and several $1 million, and I did it with AI before lunch while doing laundry. And so, which was awesome until the wind blows and it just falls over and you have no idea how it works under the hood and you can't fix a bug. And what about AI for development? How do we get to a place where we can capitalize on the exponential speed that you can get from using it while for the risks?
Great question.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's part of it. I think you have to have the governance. My observation in seeing, my team use AI, other teams use AI, is that it kind of goes back to that comment about greenfield stuff, right? If it's brand new, AI works really well, and you can have it fall over in an instant if you aren't careful, because you're still not thinking about the architecture correctly, and you're still not considering things. Has it gotten better? Yeah, it's gotten a lot better. Is it going to be perfect? I don't think so. But the other piece to this is that while there's a lot of interest and it's in the limelight today, I don't see a lot of people actually following through in the way that you would build a capability for the TAC ecosystem. There's the discipline of being able to actually, build it before lunch, but then take it to market, take it to a government customer, et cetera, and having it actually provide value. I think what you'll see is there's going to be a litany of apps that come out that all claim to do the same thing, and it's really it's kind of almost on the owner of that to be able to figure out, like, okay, well, how am I going to make sure I can adapt and become more efficient with that? We're going to see a lot more software. You already know this, but does it necessarily mean that it's gonna totally disrupt things? I'm not really sure yet, but I think the governance also applies in that domain, and especially in this type of setting. What are we building, right? If you build something that before lunch and it's a warfighting capability, yeah, I'm going to want to know how it's put together. 100%. Yeah, great point. Anybody else?
All right. Other questions? Come on up.
Maybe just very generally, there's been sort of like a lot of broad talk about governance. There's like maybe more, you dive a little bit more into like what that might look like, unit tests, sort of a standardization test procedure that like advances the explainability that you're sort of talking about.
Yeah.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, so the question was, okay, you said governance a bunch of times, so what? How do we actually put that into practice? And for us, that comes down to clearly documenting building requirements for what gets put into the AI up front. And then for me personally, as a developer, it's a choice, but that's where as soon as I do that initial ask, this fly is really trying to get me. I'm after not the unit test, I'm after the integration test, right? Okay, I'm glad that you did this. I've described to the AI not only the requirements from a functional perspective, but I've also given it the non-functional pieces as well. This is how I want you to encapsulate the logic that I'm providing to you. I want you to call this a TAC user, et cetera. And then from there, the next step is the integration. But I think the governance thing is broad because it's not something that people are paying attention to. Everybody's like, this Opus model just dropped, let's go use it. Hold on. That's cool, I'm glad that it dropped. But like, what are we thinking about when we just switched that? Would we do this 5 years ago? Probably not. That's my 2 cents.
That's great.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys being here. What do you guys think about the panel? Thank you guys for your time and your expertise, and we appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
Can we get a group photo?
Yeah.
Okay.
We all sit down and then just Dustin kind of go over and stand there.
This is the last thing between me and the bio break.
All right, hold on just a sec. Over. Oh, that's great. Everyone right here. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Great. Thank you.
Was I in it? That's crazy. It must be crazy wide angle.
It is.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Thank you.
Good job, fellas.
First time we've heard about it.
Just let everybody know, now until lunch is pretty much free flow. Get with your vendors an hour